Greg, the big story, of course, off the field this week was the hiring of Bill Moos as athletic director, and you wrote a very nice piece for the Husker website. And you said in there something that I think a lot of Husker fans need to hear, which is that Bill Moos resonated with you because he talked about the entire Nebraska athletic program and their success level and where they need to be, not just the football program.
I think that's the message really coming down from the Chancellor's office as well. You go back to the dismissal of Sean Eichhorst when Ronnie Green said, we're not competitive across the board in sports. And that's exactly right. I mean, you just go back and look, volleyball's kind of the exception right now. And the baseball team won the conference title last year. I don't want to dismiss their efforts, but, women's basketball had one of their worst seasons in history last year. The basketball team went 12-19. The football team is certainly not right. You go back, and people always want to point to the 90s. Heck, go back to the 80s and look at how Nebraska was dominating the gymnastics and wrestling and swimming and all these different things, and that's just not happening right now. And people, donors to the program, supporters of the program, write these checks because they want to see some success on the field, and that just wasn't happening. And that message was carried to Bill Moos, and he brought it, I thought, effectively to the press conference the other day.
And he has an effective track record as well.
He does, at more than one place.
Yes.
And, people point to Washington State, which is where he is currently, Oregon, which is where he was for more than a decade. But I also point to Montana, which is winning at a little bit different level with, not as many resources. He was able to get it done there as well. So when you look at what he's done through his career, he knows what it takes to structure an athletic department to win, and now he's going to have a lot of resources at his disposal that he hasn't had really anywhere else. And top-notch facilities, a huge budget, about to be this huge windfall coming from the Big Ten Conference that Nebraska has never experienced. So I think he's excited. I think that's what attracted him to Lincoln.
And I don't know if the timing had anything to do with it at all, but it certainly felt right during this bye week, especially coming after this Ohio State loss, to have this announcement to at least give people something to look forward to for the future.
I don't know if you noticed that a lot of the local media have gotten a hold of Bill Moos's contract. Jeff, it was signed last Friday.
Okay.
It was signed the day before the Ohio State
Sure.
game. They waited and held the announcement until Sunday. So they had their guy late last week, and they didn't want to take away from the game. Maybe it would have helped people as they watched that thing to see that happen. But, yeah, in fact, I saw the school president on Friday, and he acted like, Greg, you're going to like what we've done. And I'm like, you got your guy, don't you? And he wouldn't tell me at that point in time. But I had a pretty good feeling on Friday that they had zeroed in on who they wanted at least.
Okay, so we'll save all of the other speculation as to what might happen with a new administration and all that for a later date. But let's talk about football, and let's talk about a very, very tough game to watch on Saturday, the most lopsided loss at home for the Huskers since 1949. You knew it was going to be an uphill climb against the Buckeyes. You thought it would be a better competitive game than that.
We can still talk about Moose if you'd like.
Yeah.
For a little. Yeah, it was painful. And I was worried that was going to happen because of a couple of things. One, the back-to-back really tough games. In Nebraska, the stadium was so alive for the Wisconsin game, and the players were so hyped that if you do that and you don't get the reward of a victory on the other end, and we didn't, Wisconsin won the game, you worry, can you get it back to that level again? Can you duplicate the emotion and the fire back-to-back weeks? Well, the answer was obviously no, because Nebraska looked like a shell of themselves. Now, I'll be the first to admit, Ohio State's clearly better than Nebraska.
Sure.
They are. They're a better football team than Nebraska. But I don't think they're 35-0 in one half better than Nebraska. There just wasn't much fire. There wasn't much gas in the tank for Nebraska. It was disappointing, and even people who were at the stadium and watched the tunnel walk where you get a look at the guys' faces when they're coming out of the locker room, or even going, there wasn't even any fire when they came out of the locker room. And so it was a complete down effort by Nebraska in that game, an embarrassing effort, and an effort that should not happen at Memorial Stadium when you're the home football team. And it was really tough to stomach. It was tough to watch. It was tough to call from a personal standpoint. And by the end of the game, and I remember looking out with 7-8 minutes to go in the game, and Matt and I were guesstimating maybe 10,000 people still in the stands. So pretty much everybody had left the yard at that point in time. And It was an embarrassing night for Husker football.
So is it possible this bye week comes at the perfect opportunity, though, because you need to take some time? Because you hit rock bottom at this point. I mean, people can say the Northern Illinois game was rock bottom, and that was to a certain extent. But from a performance standpoint, this is about as bad as it gets. So is this coming at the perfect time where the team has a chance to regroup now?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to try to flush it right here this week. And we got some guys who are hurt.
Yeah.
That secondary, particularly the safety spot, completely beat up. Even Mike Riley said early this week, he said if we had to play Saturday, he goes, J.D. Spielman would not play.
Mm-hmm.
He got slammed to the turf late in the game against Ohio State. His shoulder was really throbbing. He wouldn't have been able. So the week off, yes, absolutely comes at a good time. It's just past the halfway point of the season. We played 7. We have 5 to go. And so we all know you need at least 3 wins in those last 5 to get yourself bowl eligible, which to me has to be the bare minimum that the 2017 Huskers can do is to get to a bowl game. Anything less than that would just be a complete disaster. So regroup, reboot, reset, whatever word you want to throw in there, that has to happen this week. And this team has to regain some fire. This team has to regain some focus and try to finish with some wins here over the last 5 weeks.
You mentioned the status of J.D. Spielman. We're also looking at guys like Joshua Kalu and Aaron Williams and Antonio Reed. Could this extra time be the time they need to maybe get back in time for Purdue?
Should be. I would anticipate, and we're 8 days out, I would anticipate that Williams and Reed are back at the safety spot. I don't know about Kalu. He tweaked the hamstring again, and that's just that booger of an injury that once you get it, and he played a couple of games, played the Wisconsin game and the first part of the Ohio State game, and he re-injured it. So I don't know about Kalu. I think Spielman gets himself back. But to get Williams and Reed back will be a huge benefit because in their absence last week, what Nebraska tried to do, and it did not work, was move DiCaprio Boodle from a corner to a safety and put him out there at safety. And Ohio State saw that, and their eyes lit up, and they attacked him pretty hard in the first half of the game last week. So to get Williams and Reed back would be a huge help going to that game in a week against Purdue.
And we're also looking at a critical time period now for Trey Bryant because we've gotten to the point now where the discussion about a medical red shirt has come into play. Any updates on that?
No, Mike Riley said he met with the media on Wednesday and said that's being discussed. And he said we have to have that discussion with Trey that if he misses maybe one more game, that for his career and his benefit, let's quit trying to force it and let's get him a medical redshirt because he didn't redshirt last year. He played as a true freshman, so he has that ability to have that. With Nebraska having some other backs who have shown the ability to carry this team a little bit, and those Zigbo and Wilbon, and they also really, Jeff, need to get Jalen Bradley some carries.
Mm-hmm.
If you've now made the decision to not redshirt him, I think he has 7 or 8 carries in the year. That's not enough. That shouldn't warrant a burning a guy's redshirt. So he needs to get some carries over the last 5 games. So the next couple of days I think will be critical for Trey. We'll next hear from Coach Riley on Monday. He might have an update on Trey at that time.
So, Greg, with the extra time to prepare for Purdue now, and obviously, as we mentioned, getting some guys back, and that will help in terms of getting some healthy bodies out there again, is this a time with a little bit of extra preparation that you make some wholesale changes, or what do you do at this point?
Well, I think what they did earlier this week was kind of go back and hit some fundamentals. Did start to work a little bit on Purdue, and then the coaches have scattered to go recruit.
Yeah,
the players get today off, they get tomorrow off, they'll be back for some meetings on Sunday. So I don't know that you make wholesale changes. I just don't get the vibe that's going to take place in Lincoln. I think that they're going to try to shore some things up, try to lick their wounds a little bit, get some guys healed up, and give it a go. I do think that something that's been encouraging the last couple of weeks has been the play of Tanner Lee. I mean, Tanner Lee's numbers over the last 3 or 4 games since that disaster against Northern Illinois that thank you referenced earlier in the interview as well. I appreciate you doing that. Is that he's completing about 60% of his passes. I think he has 6 touchdowns and 1 pick over those games. That's better. That's improvement. That's a guy kind of settling in as Nebraska's quarterback. He's making better decisions, throwing the ball away, avoiding sacks, feeling the rush better. All those things, I think he's the timing has kind of come back for him. That, to me, is a real positive as we get ready to hit this last part of the season.